The Intercept has a damning report in regard to our intelligence agencies and some of the undercover work they've done regarding right-wing extremism here in the United States. Now, what this report specifically focuses on and hones in on is the infiltration of white supremacists into our local police departments. Now, the incredible thing about this story is that there have been warning signs leading up to what we're experiencing now. In fact, back in 2006, before Obama was elected, the Department of Homeland Security had released a report indicating that there was a growing problem of right-wing extremism here in the U.S., but conservatives fought it so aggressively that the DHS not only retracted their report, they also decided to disband a group of individuals who were tasked with fighting right-wing extremism here in the U.S. Well, fast forward to today, and we have even more information about what's going on. According to the Intercept, the FBI Counterterrorism Guide from April 2015 notes that domestic terrorism investigations focused on militia extremists, white supremacist extremists, and sovereign citizen extremists often have identified active links to law enforcement officers, and explains in some detail how bureau policies have been crafted to take this infiltration into account. So federal investigators have been reluctant, though, to publicly address that threat or to point out the movement's longstanding strategy of infiltrating the law enforcement community. And part of the reason why is because of what the Department of Homeland Security experienced back in 2006. The type of criticism and the pushback that they got from Republican lawmakers. And look, let's keep it real. There are members of the government, people working in intelligence, who are fundamentally weak and can't withstand criticism. And so as soon as conservatives get fired up about something, they get scared. But if your intelligence has found that there is a growing problem of right-wing extremism in this country, which could lead to actual individuals getting hurt, maybe you should do something about it and have a backbone.
Well, it's telling when they say, hey, don't investigate white supremacists. I mean, what a weird thing to say. Why? Do you identify with them? It's another thing if they said, hey, look, we're going to investigate all right-wingers, including Rush Limbaugh. Wait, Rush Limbaugh's not in the cops. Why would you investigate him? I don't like the guy, but I don't agree with him, but that has nothing to do with this, right? But this is the FBI. They're not there to waste their time, and they're not a particularly left-wing organization. They're just saying we need to figure out if white supremacists have infiltrated things like our police departments and are taking actions that are hurting some of our citizens. How can you be opposed to that? Unless you're a white supremacist and you think that's awesome. Oh, I mean, some of the evidence they have is how
I have the evidence.
I know, but
yeah.
How they attack members of minority groups without justification. Like, aren't you? I hope you're against that. I mean, the only way you're not against that is unless you're a white supremacist.
What's weird is that when it comes to domestic terrorism, it's become so politically charged that individuals want to protect one form of terrorism while aggressively going after another form of terrorism. Domestic terror is domestic terror. I don't care if the person doing the terrorism is white or black or Muslim or whatever. What I care about is the government using the intelligence that, by the way, we're paying for in an effective way to protect American citizens, regardless of what an individual's background is. Now,
and can I just say, before you get to the specifics, I just figured it out. I can't believe it's taken me this long when we talk about projection all the time. So I just realized why they blame all Muslims. And I'm like, what? That's so irrational. Like, and I know that some of them will say, no, most Muslims, majority Muslims, whatever, right? Whatever distinction you want, right? And I think, like, why not just go after the guys who actually did it? And, like, so we don't, like, could you imagine if we were, like, weirdly, like, no, don't go after the radical jihadists. Why would you do that? No, of course go after the radical jihadists. They might kill us, right?
Right.
But don't randomly go after a Muslim dude who is not a radical jihadist, right? So, but I figured out why. Because they're doing projection. They think, well, when you go after white supremacists, we assume you mean us. So that's why they get defensive. They're like, why are you going after white supremacists? Don't go after white supremacists. So they assume that we're going to have the same reaction, where we're going to be like, don't go after jihadis. Why are you going after jihadis? No, yeah, we want you to go after jihadis. We want you to go after right-wing terrorists. But for them, they think, those guys kind of think like we do, right?
Yeah, look.
For us, we make a distinction between fundamentalists and moderates and the majority of people. For them, they don't make distinctions based on fundamentalism or not fundamentalists. They make a distinction on, wait, are you like me? Are you white? Are you this nationality? Or are you not? That's the distinction they make.
Right. And look, the thing that obviously concerns me and should concern everyone, regardless of, where you stand politically, is that if there is evidence of bad actors in this country, again, regardless of their background, I don't care about their skin color, their gender, any of that. We want to make sure that we take care of that situation instead of ignore it to the point where someone can really pose a real risk, an imminent threat to American citizens. And by the way, I want to be clear about something. So this FBI report is not something that the FBI just willy-nilly published, right? This was something that the Intercept got a Freedom of Information, used the Freedom of Information Act to get a request to get this information from the FBI. And so they're looking into it and they're like, oh my God, look at what's happening. And then you put it in the context of what happened in 2006 with the Department of Homeland Security report, and it starts really raising a lot of red flags. So
I'm going to steal one last piece of context on 2006. That Department of Homeland Security report, 2006, it was under the Bush administration.
Yes.
So, and by the way, give credit to the Bush administration for doing a report about right-wing terrorism and white supremacists and et cetera. And then, unfortunately, it was released under the Obama administration. Obama administration did not write it. They happened to release it publicly when Obama was president. And Rush Limbaugh and the rest flipped out. And they're like, how dare you? Obama's attacking all of us wonderful white supremacists.
And
how
remember,
could he?
that was in the middle of the Tea Party movement. And so, yeah, the backlash was pretty extreme. And the Department of Homeland Security, again, got rid of their team that was given the sole job of keeping an eye on right-wing extremism in this country.
They brought that team down from 25 agents down to only one. I mean, Obama, that's why he drove me crazy. I'm going after white supremacists, but Rush Limbaugh of Fox News and the Tea Party complained. The proper reaction should have been, yeah, anyway, let's make that 50 agents instead of 25.
So let's talk about what this means for local police departments, because this is actually something that I didn't even think of when we do all these stories of, police brutality or excessive force. This is, again, according to the FBI report that the Intercept managed to obtain. So in at least one case, the FBI learned of a skinhead group encouraging ghost skins to seek employment with law enforcement agencies in order to warn crews of any investigations. Now, what are ghost skins? These are essentially white nationalists who hide the fact that they are white nationalists so they can enter into the police force and essentially work as narcs, right? Because you're trying to figure out whether or not local police departments are investigating right-wing extremism or investigating your friends. Also, in Los Angeles, a U.S. District Court judge found in 1991 that members of a local sheriff's department had formed a neo-Nazi gang and habitually terrorized Black and Latino residents. In Chicago, John Burge, a police detective and rumored KKK member, was fired and eventually prosecuted in 2008 over charges relating to the torture of at least 120 Black men during his decades-long career. Burge notoriously referred to an electric shock device he used during interrogations as the nigger box.
So now, one of those was 1991, but that's LA. Oh, LA's so liberal. Depends on who you're talking about. The other one was 2008, that's not that long ago, and he did that to, it's just one cop, to 120 black guys, right? And then you wonder why sometimes Black Americans say, hey, we've got a little different experience than you. Sometimes we get that box. Now, you never see it because the white supremacists aren't going to bring out that electroshock device for you because it's not intended for you, and it's not intended for criminals. It's intended because the guy's a white supremacist and would like to torture black people. That's why he went to jail over it, okay? So, but some people never see that, and they go, well, since it didn't happen to me, it doesn't happen. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. That's why you need the FBI to suss out what isn't true and what is true and to investigate and pursue justice.
So we have one more example. And by the way, these are just a few examples highlighted in the report. I highly recommend that you guys read the full report by the Intercept because it's illuminating and it tells you what's really going on. And there needs to be solutions to this problem. So apparently in Texas, 2 officers were fired when it was discovered they were Klansmen. One of them said he had tried to boost the organization's membership by giving an application to a fellow officer he thought shared his, quote, white Christian heterosexual values.
There's no way they didn't have sex together.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Well, so look, this is very, very problematic, and especially considering how everything went down during this last election and the types of people who feel emboldened to come out and share their hatred and their bigotry. We have a growing problem that is going unaddressed. And so I like that the FBI continued to investigate this, obviously also under Comey, who is by no means a liberal, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah.
Given what happened in the election.
But it does worry me that they were not very keen on releasing this report or the investigations that they've done. Again, the Intercept had to obtain it through the Freedom of Information Act.
If you're a conservative and you have good intentions, God bless. There needs to be a range of thought in the country, and we should debate about how much regulations we should have and what the tax rate should be. But we shouldn't debate over this stuff. If you think that we should cover up white supremacists in the cops, or it's no big deal, there's something wrong with you. Either you are a white supremacist, or you think it's no big deal, and that's why the rest of the country thinks you're bad people. So if you're not in that group, then make sure that you throw them out of the Republican Party, distance yourself, help the FBI investigate them. Or if you don't, then you're saying, oh, to me, it's not that big a deal because I'm not a minority. What do I care? That's the reality. We are the watchers on the wall. We are the sword in the darkness. Come join us. tytnetwork.com/join.